Welcome to our analytical briefing. Today we will examine the strikes on oil refineries in 20,000,000 to 140,025, their impact on operational and economic conditions, and the strategic decisions behind them. We will cover technical details, examples of attacks, and consequences for logistics, military operations, and political context. What an oil refinery is and why it is targeted. An oil refinery is an industrial complex that converts crude oil into gasoline, diesel, aviation fuel, lubricants, and petrochemical products. For the military, refineries are a critical target because they supply fuel for heavy vehicles, aircraft, and logistics convoys. Ukrainian strikes pursue multiple objectives simultaneously. First, they disable critical components, storage tanks, refining columns, pumping systems, and automation. Second, they create logistical challenges, forcing the enemy to redirect resources and spend time on repairs. Third, they exert psychological and political pressure, signaling their ability to strike deep into the rear. Technical means and tactics. The main means of strikes include three categories. First, kamikaze drones, inexpensive, effective against open storage tanks, precise and difficult for air defenses to intercept. Second, cruise missiles of medium and long range, capable of penetrating air defense systems and striking deep into enemy territory. Third, large UAVs with hundreds or thousands of kilometers of autonomy, capable of precisely hitting critical refinery components. The success of such operations depends on range, energy autonomy, reliable navigation, and guidance accuracy. The most effective strategy combines drones and cruise missiles. Drones exhaust defenses, and missiles deliver precise strikes on critical nodes. Examples of strikes and operational depth in October 2025. Drones reached a refinery in Tumen, more than 2,000 kilometers from the front line. Even if material damage has not been fully confirmed, the fact of penetration demonstrates a significant increase in operational depth. In September 2025, strikes were reported on refineries in Saratov and Samara, as well as on fuel depots in southern Russia and Crimea. These actions demonstrate Ukraine's ability to target strategic objects, forcing the enemy to strengthen rear defenses, allocate resources for repairs, and reduce operational flexibility on the front. Operational consequences for the front. Disabling refineries directly affects military operations. Fuel availability drops, limiting the mobility of armored and logistic units. Command must prioritize supply, creating shortages for the civilian sector. Logistical costs increase, detours must be found, convoys organized, security provided, all of which slows troop movements. Additionally, there is a psychological effect. The constant threat of strikes demoralizes personnel and forces planners to account for risk in operational and strategic decision-making. Economic and environmental consequences. Strikes on refineries have significant economic impacts. Local fuel production drops sharply, causing short-term price spikes, shortages for transport and industry, and the need for subsidies or imports. Environmental risks include fuel leaks, soil and water contamination, and long-term costs for cleanup. Even partial disablement of a medium-sized refinery can reduce local fuel output by 1,015%, directly limiting combat capability and logistics. Risks of escalation and international context. There are serious risks of escalation. The use of long-range strike weapons, including potential provision of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, increases the ability to hit strategic objects deep in enemy territory. At the same time, the risk of diplomatic escalation and international criticism rises. The international community closely monitors attacks on critical infrastructure, and any violations of the laws of war could have consequences for arms deliveries and political support. Psychological and media impact. You have probably noticed that recently, roughly since the end of summer, during which Russia achieved almost nothing, attitudes toward the war in Ukraine have started to change significantly. This applies to Z-symbol supporters, political figures like Trump, and even very pessimistic Western media outlets. Where reports once predicted the inevitable defeat of Ukraine, they now state that Putin has already lost. Opinions from experts who previously claimed Ukraine could never influence the course of the war with its strikes have now been revised. Events on the front show that this is already happening. This shift did not occur because of a change in Trump's position. On the contrary, his position changed because Kremlin narratives collided with reality. Mountains of Russian soldier corpses yield near zero results on the front, and long lines at gas stations have become commonplace within Russia. This underscores the strategic effect of Ukrainian strikes and demonstrates that even limited actions can seriously affect enemy morale and decision-making.